Hey, what's up, and welcome to episode 2 of the Emotional Bankroll podcast. In this series, I talk with DFS pros about the highs and lows and mental health aspects of playing DFS for a living. Welcome, I'm Brian Jester, and in this episode, I chat with Brian Hooper, who you may know as bric75 on FanDuel and DraftKings. Brian is a top 10 ranked player in the Roto Grinders rankings. He has been for years. He's a former professional poker player, and he has countless six-figure scores. Now, Brian's not one to pat himself on the back for his accomplishments, so I'll do it for him. But Brian used his experience throughout our conversation to talk about topics such as why it's important to have a community of people who understand what you're going through, how there is no competition in DFS, how Brian powered through a $600,000, yes, $600,000 downswing, and the mental health aspects of dealing with those losses, and just some general tips on process and even how to beat some DFS pros who play heavy volume. I think you'll enjoy this episode. Before we get into it, make sure you are subscribed to this channel, get notified when these new episodes drop. It's also available in every podcast app, so wherever you listen to your podcast, go subscribe, and this episode will be uploaded in your feed, and when any new episodes drop, they will also be released there. And if you like it, give us a thumbs up here on YouTube, 5-star rating in your podcast apps. Any questions for Brian, for me, or any comments about the show in general, just comment on the video here and I'll be sure to get back to you. So let's bring in Brian. All right, let's bring in Brian bric75. Brian, thanks for taking the time out of your day to chat with me, and also thank you for spelling your first name the right way.
Yeah, no problem. With an I is definitely a way to go. Brian with a Y, I don't even consider them real Brians, so
I don't know if it's
nice to meet you.
nice to meet you too. And I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like every Brian with a Y is one of the most like fighting son of a bitches I've ever met.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't interact with them, so I wouldn't know.
That's a smart move. So let's jump right into it. So we got you here to talk about the emotional side, the mental health side, the lifestyle side of DFS, and no better place to start than the highs. And I want to get your opinion on just where you are in the DFS world. Right now, you're currently ranked number 10 on the Roto Grinders leaderboard, and whatever faults there may be in the Roto Grinders rankings, there's at least some objective metric out there that ranks you in the top 10 in the world at what you do in your profession. So, Brian, do you ever think about, take a step back, your place in the DFS world and how you're one of the best at what you do?
No, not really.
So you never think about, hey, I put all this time in. I'm actually damn good at all these hours I've put in. It's actually paid off.
No, I don't really think about. I don't honestly. I don't. I'm trying to think of something even similar. I don't know. Not really. There's not like a lot of people to talk to about it in real life, so it doesn't really come up much.
Right, and we'll get to that here in a little bit because that is something that's a big part of being a DFS pro is not being able to talk to other people about what you do. Let's see if we can talk about a different high and see if this changes things. So, at least from an outsider's perspective, one of your best DFS days was in PGA, that 2017 Open. You won the Thunderdome, the 333, over 250K in profit, whatever it was. And maybe there's a different day that comes to mind, but was there a sense of accomplishment after a day like that? Sunday afternoon, the golfers finish up and you have that big win.
Not really, honestly. I was like, oh, now I could quit my job. I think I have enough now.
So at that point, you were still doing DFS on the side.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What year is that? 2017?
According to my notes, yep, 2017.
Yep, that was right when I quit my job, 2017.
What was that decision like to quit your job to jump full time into this?
It was easy for me. I was working for the state at the time, the treasurer's office, and it was just boring at that point. There wasn't a ton to do. All my ideas, like, they were too political at that point, and they weren't getting even out of the office, much less to the Capitol. And so, like, it's just wasting my time.
Right. Like, what's the point, right? Maybe the work was your passion, but they're not hearing your ideas. And why am I even showing up every day? So I get that for sure.
I didn't want to keep going in the political world anymore either. As opposed to like maybe when I started 2011 or 12, I was into it, but by that point I was like, this is not for me.
That's fair. And so now you're in DFS full time. And I always say there's levels to this game, right? Like for someone like me, it's way different the amount that you're investing as a top 10 player than I would. So when you quit your job and went full time, was that when you had that big jump in volume? And if so, was there any hesitation whenever it was to make this jump into the volume you're at now?
The volume was pretty close even before I quit my job. and it's stayed kind of steady. And usually, like when I'm in swings, then I lower it if I'm on a downswing, and if I'm in an upswing, I usually raise it. Honestly, but that's about it. I mean, like, yeah, definitely 2017 there, because just to enter that PGA slate, I can't. That was a long time ago, but it must have been 15 grand or 20 grand or something just to get in all those ones you mentioned.
Right, and that was normal for you at the time, that amount?
That was probably a little high that day because it was an open too, right? And there's a lot more, recreational players playing those.
Absolutely. Now, so Brian, you used to play poker, obviously, and you've once said that you're not as competitive in DFS as you were back in poker. Is that just because you think there aren't any live decisions to be made against other humans in DFS? Like, if we're playing poker, it's you and I one-on-one, heads up, we're making a decision against each other every single stage of the hand, or do you think there are other factors that lead you to not be as competitive in DFS?
Yeah, it's I'm attributing it to the head to head for sure. Because like you're one on one. Usually the pot in poker comes down to head to head. There's multi-way pots, but most of them come down to head to head. And like this guy tricked you. Either he tricked you or it's a complete battle with you versus him. And so like it's much more personal. I was a lot younger.
True.
Poker ended in 2011. So I was a different person, probably more competitive. I'm still pretty competitive, but I was really competitive back then. And it's definitely a head to head. This guy specifically took my money, where even if you're playing head to heads in DFS, it's like you enter whatever 100 or whatever,
Right,
1,000 or something, and you're like, I don't know, this guy did, but this guy didn't, this guy did, this guy did. Even on a bad slate, you get 25% of your money back. You know what I mean? Where like if someone just bluffed you, you think bluffed you 10 times a row, so you're like, I'm just going to call them, and they have the nuts. It's just like so frustrating.
And yeah, it's the actual worst. And again, you're not getting that aspect in DFS, so it totally makes sense. Speaking of competition, you had the Whistles Go Woo on your podcast last year, and you tweeted after he won the Fantasy Football World Championship. And for those of you who know, he had that infamous video, drunken stupor, cheering about his nearly $3 million win. And I can't remember if your tweet was explicit or if it's just what I inferred from it, that you would hope someone like that would stay in the DFS ecosystem. How often do you see new names? Are you tracking new names that enter the high stakes world? And when you do, what's the calculus behind deciding if they're a sharp player out of nowhere?
I don't track them at all. They pop up on the leaderboard themselves and make themselves aware, or make us aware of them, I should say.
So like when Whistles came up and you see this new guy crushing it, do you study what he does? Does he not cross your mind? What does something like that do to you?
Odds are that they're probably just running hot, and a lot of times they come and go. And if anything, I guess that's kind of what the RG leaderboard really shows, is guys who've been around for a while haven't gone broke. It's the accomplishment. You might not be the greatest, but it's still pretty hard to stay around for 5, 7, 10 years or whatever. So like I just don't see a lot of those guys who run hot ever sticking around. And a lot of times they'll win like whatever, a big one, $1 million, or split a showdown or something like that. That's kind of the last you hear of them. And so, like, just talking about Whistles before, I think I said that before we had him on the show. I might have said it after we had him on the show, honestly. But like, but yeah, that was, just probabilistically speaking, is he's probably going to donate most of it back. Not him, just someone who
Sure.
new to gambling. And I knew he wasn't a gambler, right? Like he wasn't a professional gambler too. So I don't know. The jury's still out.
It's still out on all of us, right? Like any of us could have a bad year, and
There
if
you
you're
go.
not careful with
The
your
game's
money.
always changing.
A quick timeout to remind you that this episode is sponsored by the Lineup Builder at Occupy Fantasy, powered by DFS Magic. Are you tired of expensive DFS optimizers not providing the settings and tools you need to create profitable lineups in all sports? Check out the Lineup Builder at Occupy Fantasy, created, built, and used by top DFS pros. Use it to hand build entries or automatically create up to 150 lineups using optimal lineup criteria and sport-specific settings. Visit occupyfantasy.com/lineup builder for more information. Now back to the show. All right, so Brian, your internet connection went out there for a bit. If you want to hop back in.
Yeah, I think the feds were coming at me after I commented on Whistles Go Woo, so it's pretty strange there. Sorry about that. Yeah, we're back. We're good. I can hear you.
You gotta be careful when you mention his name.
Yeah, seems to happen. Seems to always happen when I mention Whistles Go Woo, which is strange. All right.
We'll censor it out when this gets published. So
Okay, good.
All right, let's talk about the lifestyle a little bit because I know a lot of people who are listening to this wonder about what it's like to be a DFS pro. And I would say being a DFS pro is generally not as glamorous as most people believe or make it out to be. And in general, it's a pretty unhealthy lifestyle, right? With lots of sitting, you're glued to your devices all hours of the day. So, how do you personally combat that?
Um, Poorly, I would say. I wish I was better. I was definitely better in 2017 and 18 before COVID. Hopefully that changes here soon. But so like back then, I would do like I burned through the whole Headspace meditation app. I did all their levels, and I switched over to Sam Harris's Waking Up app. And I know people have problems with him, but like the app, I think the meditation app's really good. And I have 2 gym memberships, of which I haven't gone to either in the last week and a half. I also had a shoulder injury. I play golf like twice a week probably, and I don't know what I did, but I got frozen shoulder. I'm assuming from golf, and so like that puts you out of commission for a while. It's a pretty annoying injury.
I'm
Leaving
also
up.
dealing with frozen shoulder, by the way, so I feel your
Oh,
pain.
really?
Yeah.
God, it's brutal, right? Like, I mean, there's severity of cases are different from everyone. Mine was really bad, but I'm assuming it's genetic too, because my brother had it too, my older brother. So
Hmm.
I wonder if you have any siblings, tell them to watch out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, Brian, like, there's a lot of jobs that are unhealthy these days, right?
Right.
Like, there's a lot of jobs where people sit, and so it's the same problems everyone has. If anything, it's probably easier because, like, you're gonna have to be at your computer Central Time, 5 to 9 on an NBA slate. That's the longest you're gonna have to be at your computer for any sport. Now you should be doing other stuff. Obviously, I don't think you need to be chess is okaying it and 80 hours a week constantly, but you do need to work on your models, or I don't know, everyone's process, but you need to be doing something, grinding the tape, I guess. But other than that, though, you have plenty of time to go to the gym, especially when no one's there too, which is nice. You can go during the day. You can kind of make your own hours. I sleep regular hours now, but back in the poker days, you really couldn't because the games were good later on. So usually I would sleep until like at least noon.
Right. Yeah, it is a different lifestyle for poker just because of the hours. And you mentioned the meditation. So, I mean, obviously you did multiple apps. Did you find the meditation helpful specifically?
Yeah, it is helpful, and it sticks with you a little bit too.
I mean, that's true. Yeah, you do the meditation and that thoughts and then those exercises stick with you over the course of time.
It's like a muscle, a little bit. You're building up a muscle that you're gonna find useful.
For sure. And most people don't even think about it that way. They always think about their physical muscles,
Yeah,
but
I think a lot of bros kind of look away from it because it's like mystic and hippie and stuff like that. But if you think of it more in terms of just like a muscle you're building up, I think maybe more guys would try it. It's not woo woo bullshit. It's not what's the stuff Aaron Waters always jokes about manifesting.
oh yeah.
It's not the whole Oprah manifesting stuff. Like there's documented data on people improving mindfulness and all sorts of different ways helping their lives, depression or just overall well-being.
No, exactly. Exactly. So for the record, you're not manifesting your wins.
I do still try, and I do still make sacrifices to DFS gods daily. It has been working lately, so
There you go. So you mentioned being at your computer from 5 to 9 Central Time, most NBA nights or every NBA night. And if you're listening to this, you probably have seen Brick in one of your contests at some point. And that's because Brian, you basically play every site, every sport for the most part. And for those of you listening who are perpetually online or into memes, the Mr. Krabs meme where he's overwhelmed and things are flying around him. And that's, I mean, I feel like that when I'm playing multiple sports at a time and news is flying. So obviously to play all those sites and all those sports, you have to have an incredible process. But how do you handle and deal with the stress when all these moving parts are happening before lock, during lock?
I mean, I don't handle it at the time. I just do it, just deal with it. It is stress. It's not like during the time I'm like, okay, here's how I handle this stress level. I'm not really consciously thinking about it. And yeah, it can get pretty crazy, especially Mondays and Thursdays when Showdown is happening at the exact same time as a bunch of games are locking in the NBA. So yeah, it can get pretty bad. I have a new process this year, kind of, so that makes it even tougher, where my old process I could probably adjust a little bit easier. I guess probably the best piece of advice I would do there, honestly, like Brian, like guys who are doing that much, they don't need my help. Like they're
For
they're
sure.
they're already there kind of. They're if you're playing on all these sites, every slate, every sport, it's not like, oh, this one tip will help you. But I guess I would like prioritize. So like if let's say like there's 2 minutes left and someone gets ruled out, but you have to get in your showdown update or something. It's like, okay, well, your showdown, you have 10 grand. Let's say, I'm just making up numbers. You got 10 grand on that whole slate. You got to get that in. Whereas the guy who got ruled out, did you have in like 5-year lineups, 10-year lineups? Like maybe just eat that money or something like that. And that is EV for other people. The grinders can provide some EV to single entry rec players. They just overload. There's too much to do and they couldn't get to it.
And especially like if you're building so many lineups and you're playing 150, you're entering small field, you're entering high dollar stuff. When a change happens that quickly, someone who's making one or two lineups in a 300 person GPP against pros probably does have an edge where they're mindfully making these changes. Where you, for instance, may just be mass editing all these lineups with 2 minutes to go, right?
Definitely, and even in 300, like the micro ones that me and Pete Overzet, I do a podcast with him. I'm sure people are aware. Lulz, he calls it micro strategy, and that's kind of big with a lot of the guys in his circle. I guess my circle too, where like Mike Leone and Pat Cran were doing like 10 mans and 15 mans or smaller and having a lot of success. And I bet a lot of it is exactly from that, where these other guys who are in those, they just enter everything. And they're not going through every single entry going like, oh, I need to switch off of this guy because I have no shot at this point.
Right.
You know what I mean? Where these guys are like designing their lineup specifically against like specific opponents in mind and stuff like that. So a real sharp strategy. And I think a lot of them had a lot of success too. So definitely something to think about.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people, when they play a contest and they look at the entrants in the contest and they'll see Mach Levin, Osimo, just the gamut of all the top guys, right? And they may say, well, that's a sharp contest. Let me back out and try to find another contest. But like you just said, there may be an edge in the fact that they're not paying attention to this $27 15-man contest or whatever they're in, because like you said, they do enter everything. And there's no chance that's at the top of their priority list.
No way. Yeah. Well, I would assume. I would assume based on my personal experience, I would assume so. Yeah.
That makes sense. All right, let's go back to poker and the community aspect of things really quickly, because you said in another interview before that you didn't have a community in poker, and from what I gather, part of the reason that you tweet now and that you started the YouTube channel and do the shows with Pete and everybody else, that you wanted to get that sense of community in DFS, right? Why do you think that's important?
Well, there's a lot of reasons, I guess. I mean, the first thing that pops in my mind is it's just like plus EV. And there's a lot of reasons why it's plus EV, but like, you could like look at the DFS community, look at like Bales and CSU, right? They're on their like third company at this point. Look at like Taylor Cabey and Andrew Wiggins. They're on their 100th company at this point,
Yep.
So like and then Adam Levitan went, from the like Bales circle over to the Taylor Cabey circle, and it's like I'm sure all of them have made a big chunk of money. I know Ricky D is in that Taylor Cabey circle, and he's told me, like they've mulled over strategy, they've worked together on businesses and stuff like that. So like strategy wise, emotional wise, it can be helpful. And it's just me personally. I don't think this really matters for someone else. Like I kind of always like I want to do it myself. You know what I mean? I want me
Right.
versus them mentality. So I just like forcing myself to get out there.
That makes sense, right? And there is always a kind of an ego thing too, where, and I don't know if it's you, but I say this myself, like I want to be better than everyone else. I don't even want to hear everyone else's thoughts sometimes. I just want to get this myself, and I think that plays a factor as well. But you mentioned the emotional side, like you need people to understand what you're going through, whether it's downswings or even upswings, because the average person, even your friends that aren't going to be able to fully understand or empathize with what you're going through. And hell, they may even resent it sometimes when you're quote unquote having issues that you just won a big tournament, your highs, and now you're losing. Like the average person's not gonna be able to understand what you're going through. So I think having that community in people who are going through it with you is important.
It's definitely true. And so like I can tell from experience, like that never changes either. Like specifically like that and what I'm talking about here is what you just said, like regular people won't understand. I'm talking about regular people, like your friends and family, will never understand like your work schedule at all. They always just assume you don't have work. So it's like, hey, can you watch my dog? At 6 o'clock, like right when the games start. Okay, we've been friends for how long, and you still don't realize this, right? Like, friend, or you're,
Right.
well, you can do it. Like, how do you know I can do it?
Right. Yeah.
Like,
Are
you
you
have
here?
no
Are you here
idea
with
what
me?
I'm doing. You know, and like it doesn't matter. Like I started poker. I quit my first job in 2005, right? So there's a long damn time ago. Still, no one gets it. No one will get it. So like, you definitely can't expect it from them. And I mean, why should you? Why should they? Like, it's pretty strange. Like, who else does really know about it? The ego thing, really quick, that you mentioned, like, for not that I don't have an ego, but it was more of kind of like, I think of it like a video game or something. We're not like ego, like, no, I want to do this so then I can say I did it. More like, okay, how are you going to get good at a video game? You got to play it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I want, like, okay, here's my idea. I'm not going to go to you, Brian, to implement it, right? I got to figure it out myself. I got to, like, okay, Google code or Excel equations, or take a stats class to implement it. Like, that's the video game aspect of it. Like, you have to sit down and play it. Now, I think maybe we're going to talk about this later. I might be going ahead of schedule here, but like, you can outsource some of this stuff. But like, anyways, in the beginning, there is where you asked. Like, that was definitely on my mind. Is like, no, I got it. You have to sit down and do it. Like, was my mindset. It's like, I can't just like ask somebody who's going to help me. Like, I couldn't even picture it. I'd be like, no, I want to work 8 hours today on this, and they're like, I have a life. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like, I'm like, oh, I'm obsessive. I know this relationship's never going to work. I have to do it myself.
For sure. No, yeah, I'm the same way. Obsessive. When you get an idea in your head, you have to figure it out, get to the bottom of it, test it out. Are you the type of person that when you have an idea for DFS or in your process, whatever it may be, that you have to have skin in the game to test it out? Or are you able to test it in an environment where you don't necessarily have to risk money to figure out if it's a good idea or not?
I mean, it might just be the degen in me. I'm gambling on that idea. I mean, for sure. So like, yeah, I am not like, remember when we were kids and like in school they'd like have like these horrible like financial advice classes or whatever, or like just an hour in class, like, like this broke teacher knows financial advice, you know what I mean? And like one of them would be like, here's what you should do: pick a bunch of stocks and track them over 10 years, and this will tell you how good you are. It's like, but I'm not going to get any money out of it, and I can't afford that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have $100,000 to pick 10 stocks.
Right. Easy.
It's like, that stuff was all just bullshit to me.
Yeah, you brought up some crazy memories there with that. I forgot all about those classes, but yeah, no, you're totally right. All right, so we talked about your friends and family knowing about what you do, but what about when you meet new people, right? You're at a party. I don't know. Maybe you don't go to parties. You're a DFS pro, right? But
Yeah, if I knew people, yeah, hypothetically.
if you met other people out in the world and they ask, "Oh, Brian, what do you do for a living?" How do you normally explain it to them?
It is a case by case basis at this point. I still don't really have a good idea on how to handle it. I think I go with something very like, I generally don't want to talk about it. So I go like, I work in the fantasy sports industry, or like uh, like, are you familiar with like fantasy sports? Yeah. I work like with the websites and stuff like that.
That's the way to go because
But sometimes they pressure you, and like,
yeah,
and then you have to get into it. It's like,
and
and
then
then sometimes I'm just like, oh, I gamble for a living.
that answers most of the questions actually, and then you end up answering start-sit questions at a wedding for 3 hours if you go too deep into it.
I don't. I definitely don't answer start say questions. That's for sure.
Let me see here. So you still don't watch sports, right?
No, I watch sports, just not like I used to. Not like when I was younger. I was big sports fan. I would watch every day, baseball, NBA, everything. But I do still watch Red Zone. I don't watch any island games. Playoffs will be touch and go. Like, if my buddy usually comes up, we go out for one of the playoff slates. So of course we'll gamble on that and watch those. Basketball, I haven't watched a game in years. Baseball, I haven't watched a game in years. Playoffs or regular season. PGA I'll watch. Like, my dad, likes PGA. We golf together. So like on Sundays, if we're hanging out, we watch. Or if I'm watching like for the cut, I think that's pretty fun. I haven't played NHL DFS in like a year and a half or 2 years. I couldn't fit it in. people got too good where you can't just like not think about it much and just make a little money.
Right.
What other sport am I missing? I watch MMA.
It's one of the best sweats, I think, in
I love
DFS.
MMA.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, I used to like it in high school, and then I just stopped watching it. I don't know why for so long. Boxing too. Boxing used to be pretty good back in the day, but now
Totally
it's
agree.
not. I don't watch boxing still, but yeah. So MMA and Red Zone.
All right. So like when you said Sundays you're watching PGA with your dad, is he asking about your lineups or how they're doing, or are you guys just literally just enjoying the PGA
Making like
aspect?
little quarter lineups and stuff. Now he makes like little quarter lineups, 50 cent lineups. He's way more into it than I am. Like,
That's all.
oh, I
That's
can't
awesome.
believe that. It's like I'm sitting here like losing $100,000. He's losing like 8 cents.
That is amazing. That's amazing. So, I mean, so you don't watch, you're really not watching for the sweat, it sounds like. So, where does the enjoyment in your work come from, if at all? Is it just seeing the plus minus results at the end of the day?
Yeah, well, I mean, probably part of it is the main thing's putting the money, not having to have a real job, not having to have a boss. Those are all big pluses. I think, I don't know. I think a lot of this stuff is just you kind of you are who you are, like in a determinist level kind of thing, where the way you behave is just because of all the interactions and inputs you've had throughout your life since you were a little baby. So like you don't really have too much of a choice in it. And I think that's kind of why I've always been attracted to gambling. It's not like a conscious choice. It just, although it might seem like it, I've just always been interested in it, and so that is what I do. It's not like I sit down there and make a plus minus chart and like here's the reason I'm this is more pluses, so therefore I'm going to do this today, or I'm going to do this for my this is my job. That's not how I act anyway. So yeah, I think it's really like a lot of randomness that kind of led me here, and then like I do get enjoyment out of some of it, and some of it's pretty lame.
I think it's fair. I've always said myself, I never really had a choice in this because my father trained racehorses and I grew up at the racetracks on Saturday nights. My parents bet on football, and it really wasn't a life decision for me to get to where I am today.
That's interesting. Yeah, my family didn't watch sports at all and didn't gamble.
So, what do you think led to you to this then? If it's deterministic, what do you think led you to this?
Well, who knows? You could probably go back and pinpoint it if you could map it all out, but I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe a movie, maybe conversation, maybe. I mean, in high school I used to read a lot of poker obviously, but also the blackjack books.
Mm.
Like there's a lot of Kenny Ustin's $1 Million Blackjack has a whole bunch of good stories in it about his time of putting on costumes and stuff where he was banned at casinos and like to get in and gamble. And I really don't I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure some of it's genetic too. Like even though my parents didn't do it, but something about not wanting a boss seems like very important to me. I don't know where that came from honestly either. I wish I could pinpoint it, but I really. Maybe if I sat down and think for longer than this interview, I can give you an answer.
I do think it is a personality trait, not wanting to have a boss or wanting to work on your own, because it does seem like just something that's ingrained in you and not necessarily learn over time. I don't know, maybe it isn't, but
Yeah. And we're not 100% our parents, right? We're not
right.
exactly like ever all of our siblings are our parents, so I'm sure there's personality traits that are different for all of us.
I mean, if that was the case, I never would have quit my job. So that's definitely
Yeah.
definitely true. So let's talk about the devaluation of money just a bit, because I talk to
Right.
a lot of pros and you hear this very often. I go through it myself, but from a high side, is there anything, is there any amount, is there any outcome that causes you to actually get excited about a winning day or a winning tournament?
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about the Fed and money printing inflation.
Oh God,
Um,
no. Different podcast.
the amount of money, yeah. No, yeah, it does. It does. Cause like if I'm hanging out with like my buddies and we're just doing like I just mentioned before, like wild card weekend or something, even betting a couple $100 with them is fun. Cause we're just sitting there drinking, watching the games, and it's like, they really want them to win or whatever. And so like you really want them to win. It's actually more fun sometimes than some sweats. So yeah, I enjoy throwing any amount on a game as opposed to just watching it. I don't know, dry. What is that even called? Like where
I
you
don't
don't.
know.
Yeah, what do normal people call it?
I don't know. It
Just
sucks though.
watching a game. Yeah, I know it sucks. I don't know what it's called. Yeah. So I enjoy like all of it. It is lame. Here's one lame thing. Like, 'cause I'm on a downswing right now. Like, if I win 100,000 tonight, this might sound insane to some people, but like, I'll be like, it's more like a like an exhale breath than a fist pump.
Dude, I used that
Like,
exact sentence, I think a month ago, 2 months ago, and someone asked me how it was to win. It was the MMA GPP, and I said it was a sigh of relief, not a sense of excitement, because I was in a downswing.
yeah, it really is. Like, and then like if you get hot, then eventually you're like, I'm actually, when I get hot, it's really not even a fist pump or a sense of accomplishment. Still, it's more like, wow, I'm hot, and that's pretty sweet. Like, but I'm definitely running hot. You can't, like last year I won like an NBA GPP back to back nights, like
Oh
in the
wow.
big one,
Mm.
and it's like I don't know if I've even ever seen that before. You know what I mean? Like 30,000 opponents,
Right.
NBA's really hard, and you win 2 nights in a row. So like it's just pure luck, honestly. Well, not pure luck, but you know what I'm saying.
Sure.
So like yeah, even when you're on like a heater, it's really just like, oh man, oh, this is nice. Like it's a big exhale and also like just recognition of running hot.
Yeah, it's more of an
Yeah, I
acknowledgement.
don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know where guys get off on this. I don't see it much, but let's just assume people do this, like where they're like sense of accomplishment. I don't know. I feel like a sense of accomplishment in poker is much more tangible for me. And maybe that's not even true, but in DFS, like the swings are so huge
Yeah.
that like you really need to play for years and adjust as the game adjusts and stuff like that before I'm like, okay, this probably goes back to our conversation, our little whistles go woo interlude, and like, let's see how you are. Not him specifically, but just like let's see what it looks like 3 years from now, 5 years from now, something like that. And some of these guys make it, and some of these guys are really, really damn good. But I don't know. Some people give themselves too much sense of accomplishment, I think, in DFS, where they're just like using an optimizer, and they just fuck with the randomness and some exposures. They win 2 slates out of 7, and they're like giving advice to other people. It's like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't know if we're supposed to swear on here. Sorry.
No, we can
But
swear
yeah,
whenever
go
we
ahead.
want.
All right.
So I would say, so I think that's all very true. And I would say the sense of accomplishment for me personally comes when what we just talked about, testing out new ideas, and you have a new idea and you think there's an edge and you push it and it hits, and maybe it is variance that it hits at that specific time, but doing the research and the work and putting in, I think this is where the game is changing. Let me get ahead of the curve, and then it works out before other people figure it out. I think that's where the sense of accomplishment comes, not necessarily the dollars or the wins.
Yeah, maybe this is a personality thing. I like is when I see someone figure out something that I thought of a while ago, it makes me angry. I don't feel like a sense of accomplishment. I'm like, God damn it! Now that edge is gone.
Yep.
Now everyone knows that. I don't even use it anymore. But like, I don't want anyone else using it. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I think of it completely different.
That's fair. I mean, that's totally fair, right? So,
There's a lot of parallel thinking too, right? Like, I don't think anyone, maybe a couple people, are doing something like super unique and not unique is probably not the right word. Like, innovative is probably a more accurate word. Because all we're really doing is copying ideas and like looking into what other industries are doing, and that's what like a lot of the
that's
sharp players are
that's what
doing.
all innovation is, anyways, right? Like just copying ideas from other industries.
That's kind of my point, is like if you really want to think you're the innovator, like there's only like how many, a handful every generation, buddy. It's like it's not you, DFS bro.
Yeah, there's a book out there, and it sounds like you might have read it, and I can't remember what it's called, but Borrowing Brilliance is about innovation and copying ideas from other industries, and what you just talked about is a lot of is in that book.
No, I haven't read it. No. Yeah, sounds interesting.
All right, so you mentioned you're in a downswing now, right? And hopefully it's not as bad as the one you mentioned in a previous podcast, where I think you said the worst you've ever been down was like a 600K swing in a 3 month stretch in NFL, and I think for 99.99% of people listening to this cannot even fathom that amount of money. So hopefully that's the worst you've ever been through. But what was your mindset like during that downswing?
Boy, I suck at NFL. Something like that, I guess. That was a while ago. I don't remember. I've had similar swings. It sucks. It all depends on a lot of this stuff like emotional management and stuff like that is in relation to your bankroll. And people playing over their bankroll are going to feel it a lot more. And
Yes.
so at that time, I had a enormous bankroll, so it didn't really hurt that much.
Okay.
Well, I mean, come on, like it hurts, right? Like
Right.
losing $5,000 hurts, right? Like
For sure.
losing $20 hurts in real life, like
Yeah.
if it fell out of your pocket, like, God damn it, that's $20 I don't have anymore.
Now
Um,
imagine it's 600,000 fell fell out of your
oh
pocket.
God, yeah. Yeah, and I have a lot of experience, right? So like I've dealt with it for a long time. It doesn't you never get over it. It never doesn't hurt, at least in my experience. Now, if I had, Elon Musk money or something, it probably wouldn't hurt. It probably wouldn't hurt at all. But like other than that, like I don't think you really ever get over it.
I mean, it's tough, right? Like as humans, we're not really genetically engineered to handle losses of that size or any size that quickly. So, I mean, it's tough, and it is an experience to be desensitized to an extent, but it's still tough. And when you had like one of your first really big downswings, where did the confidence to keep grinding come from? Was it just like this internal grit? Was it some sort of math-based explanation of the variance, or was it simply stubbornness, or perhaps even, I don't know, an addiction?
I mean, I think mainly I'm not going back to getting a real job. That's not happening.
It's a pretty big motivator.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest motivation. If you go through your process too, it's like, oh, I had an error here. Great. Like you can go through and look through stuff. It's like you can rationalize it a whole bunch of ways too. An error, I don't think is a rationalization. I think it's actually like you had an error. Like you
Right.
got to fix that and try again. So there's a whole bunch of different ways you can go through it. I'm constantly I said this a bunch of times, but I'm constantly updating my process. It's just the way I am. I don't go like, okay, this is running hot. I'm going to keep this exactly the same forever, right? Or I'm going to, even if I start losing, I'm going to keep it because I don't want to change anything. I'm like, oh, if this is a good idea, I want to try this. If I want to switch to this software program from this one because it's a little faster, you could do a little bit more of it. I'm switching over. I want to add these stats, change the projections, change some other aspect of my process. I'm doing it. So like it doesn't really matter if I win or lose. That's just the way I like doing it. And that's kind of that's for me at least is the interesting aspect of it, the theory of it. And like what else can I do? What am I missing here? How else would they think of it in another industry?
Right. So one, you have to continue to adapt, right? Or you're gonna be left behind. That's a simple fact. But so it sounds like to me, you're changing the process and you modifying and evaluating your process is more from a curiosity standpoint rather than like a self-doubt standpoint. Is that right?
I guess maybe some of it has to be inherently self-doubt too, because if you didn't have any doubt in it, you wouldn't change it.
True.
So yeah, it's a combination of both curiosity, but I mean also motivated by profit. I want the best process I can humanly make.
I think that's a fair goal to strive for. And
Common sense, I guess.
all right. So for people out there listening who, I mean, everyone out there listening has gone through a downswing. Do you have any specific tips, general tips to help people to continue to make, or if they don't already, is to start making plus EV moves, plus EV decisions in the face of a downswing? Because whether it's consciously or subconsciously, we have issues in decision making when there are negative aspects surrounding us.
Mm, yeah, I mean, I think this kind of goes along with what we talked about before, where I said like playing all the slates and stuff is like how many people the people who are going through downswings, like they probably don't need my advice that much because I think most players aren't plus EV. Like the
Right.
vast majority aren't plus EV. So it's not a downswing, you just suck. like like I mean, to put it blunt, right?
No,
Like
for sure.
it's you can only downswing if you're theoretically an upswing player.
Good
So
point.
I mean, then my advice, I guess, would be to quit because you're not plus EV most likely. So, like, honestly, I don't really know how to answer that. Like, and the guys who are really good, like, they don't care what I think about downswings. Or maybe they do. I don't know. They probably might handle it better than me. Honestly, I might
True.
want to listen to them. Like, mine is strictly from, like I said before, bankroll management and experience. I guess the number one thing, this probably applies for everybody, is it's not the worst thing in the world to lower your volume.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Especially if the money's affecting you that badly, then yeah, lower
yeah,
your allocation.
go through Roto Tracker or something, and like maybe you really suck at one sport compared to another, like that. Even if you can limit your losses, even if you're not a plus EV person too, that way. So like maybe you're better in like the afternoon slates or whatever, or the night slates, the turbos, or I would try to play the easiest stuff. Play the side sites, play Super Draft, play Yahoo, play sports no one's playing, play sports the pros aren't playing. If you have Fantasy Cruncher, go through lineup rewind. You can look at the other players. And sure, go ahead and look at them. I'd be careful there because they change. A lot of them change their process a lot, so you might not get as much benefit as you think. But also go through the sports and go like, how many 150s, how many max enters are there in these sports? And the more there are generally on a regular night, not a night where there's going to be a ton of action, because then you might get a whole bunch of people just degenning it up at 150. But on a regular night, if there's not a lot of 150s in that sport or slate or time, maybe you want to start focusing on those things. This is also like you have to be like you want to be like an advantage player, like an AP in the casino there, where you're willing to grind out all these small edges and stuff like that. And a lot of people don't want to do that. They just want to enter the 30,000, $15, 100K to first and just bank that every other week. And it's like that's not going to happen. Those tournaments are getting tougher and tougher. You can expect to be halfway decent and maybe make a few bucks on it over the long run, but that even the swings are so big there. So like if you want to get out of a downswing, I would like do all those things and maybe consider yourself trying to like turn more to an AP, like an advantage player, and just looking at all these edges, really hunting for overlay. Like there's not a ton of it, but it's out there still. Smaller sites and lower amount of opponents too, within reason. You don't want to go into the Thunderdome, obviously, but like you might swing a little less against fewer opponents.
Yep.
All sorts of things like that. But in the long run, if like you don't have a good plus EV process, you're almost certainly going to lose, unless you're really good at overlay hunting,
Right.
And bonus hunting and use your crowns well. There's not the edges aren't. It's not the same, Brian. Right? It's not. It's not like it was
No.
in 2015, 16, 17. Unfortunately.
It's not. It's not. You mentioned the number of 150 maxers in a contest, and that's a really interesting point because Colin in the last episode brought that up too. Because when he and I first started grinding NFL Showdown when it first came out, 2018 or so, you would have 30 150 maxers on a slate. Now go look at a primetime Showdown slate, and it's 150, 200, 150 maxers, and there's no wonder why that game has gotten so much sharper.
I mean, that's a perfect example. So 2018 Showdown, you could go back in time. Man, you could bank. No one knew what the hell they were doing. And just like you said, there wasn't a lot of 150 maxers because it was seen as a joke. It was seen as a casino ticket.
Yeah.
And it actually was the exact opposite, right? Like, so you have to be open-minded at new offerings for sure. Like new sites, new offerings. Like I bet all those little prop bet sites, like Prize Picks or whatever, I'm honestly not familiar with a ton of them. The smaller the site, like this is just a warning from back in the poker days. The smaller site, be careful. Don't put a ton of money on them because they go under. Trust me, I've had poker sites go under. I lose tens, 20s, $30,000. So be careful there. But I don't want people getting like recommended to a site from me. I'm not recommending any specific site. But I bet a lot of those you can make some cash. But the showdown reminded me of that type of thing. It's because especially back then, like guys just thought of it as a casino ticket. So like no one would enter it. And it's like, oh my God. A, no one knows how to play this. And B, none of the sharp players have gotten interested in it yet. So it's like, what a great opportunity. Yeah, it was fantastic.
It's a perfect storm of what you're looking for. Everything you just talked about, it's a perfect storm of finding the advantage when no one else is finding it. So I think it's really key. So, all right, Brian, I'll let you get out of here in a couple seconds. Just want to give some final advice for people out there listening because countless times per month I get the question, Brian, I want to be a DFS pro. How do I do it? How do I get there? And, I can say whatever my advice is, but the people want to hear from you, Brian. So from a skill set standpoint, what do you think is the most important skill to have in doing what you do, being a DFS pro?
Being obsessive is probably number one, and that's probably not a skill by any definition, but I'm rolling with it. I think you're kind of more or less born with it, and I don't really think you can choose to be obsessed with something, but I definitely think that's what it takes to get to the top. Like, I don't know, whatever, 5%, 1% or whatever of kind of any competitive game with adults is you have to be obsessed with it. I think, de facto, like the smarter you are, probably the better. I don't think that's really going to put you over the edge, though. I don't know. Like, I think, like, if you listen to a lot of the, like, poker players in over the years and DFS bros, their intelligence range is pretty hard from some guys that, like this guy's the guy beating me. I remember back before, like, when poker players would win and, they'd be better than me and they'd be beating me. And then I finally listened to him on an interview. And I'm like, this is the idiot. This is the idiot who's been taking all my money.
Yes.
And so, like, but like, I guess that was completely pointless because if you're like really slow, you're probably not listening to this podcast. You're probably not thinking like, how can I get better at DFS? You're not really putting in the effort anyway. So,
Right.
but yeah, if you tend to obsess, like, that's one of the reasons I switched over to DFS is I saw the amount of opponents that were in these NFL events, and I'm like, okay, I know I can beat that many people. Like, I could beat them in like video games back when I was used to play video games. I could beat them in poker when there's that many people. I think I could transfer this over. So, like, and I know like that I got obsessed with certain things, guitar and poker, and Madden football. And like I knew I could do it. Like, I knew for sure I could do it. Like,
just from an obsessive outworking standpoint, right?
Yeah, like I'm like, I'm just gonna outwork these guys. Like, I'm just gonna put it. I know I can be crazy. I could be crazy obsessed more than X amount of these 300,000 people.
Sure.
I just know I can because I've done it before. And so that's just personal belief. Like, I knew I could do it. I might not have been able to do it. I clearly could have lost right away and just like, this is impossible. Because I did try to beat sports betting after poker ended. I put in like 6 months into it. And I just gave up. Like, it's really hard, but I think I'm much better at it now. But like, there was also the regulation and stuff like that, and it's hard to get money and move money around, and people were getting banned, and the sites were really shady at that point and stuff. So like, there was more to it than just me. But if you see yourself as that type of person who's like, maybe you're the best GoldenEye player in your in your college dorm, or you have that ability of like that. This is another reason why so many poker players switched over. Like, just the transfer so easily, and they knew like, okay, I'm gonna put in the time and figure this out. I really don't think it's sports. I will say this though about I don't watch sports, but like as much, but like I know a lot about sports. Like, I know more than 99.9% of the society. Like, if you go out and talk to normal people, like, they don't know the third string wide receiver, right, or something like that. Like, they don't know who these people are. No, nor should they. And I'm not blaming them. They're probably a lot happier. You know what I mean? Like, so like that does help. It does help. So like, a lot of times I'll joke, or people will say like, you don't need to know anything about sports. It's like, yeah, technically you don't, but it does help. Like, because like when someone gets ruled out, it's nice to know who the backup is. It's nice to know like who's going to be getting like like when there's a quick change, you need to know something within 5 minutes or less. Like, it's nice to know the players. If your model breaks, it's nice to know like, oh, it might be this guy's name because he's got 3 dashes and 4 Nyes in it. You know what I mean? Like,
too often.
And so
I feel that pain.
Yeah. It happens constantly, So like, oh wait, this team has 10 players, but I know they have 11.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, so where I have to go back through all these different things and like, okay, here's where the error is. So like, it does help to like know sports. And the polar opposite of that, like, if you think you're like a sports bro and you're gonna come in and just win at sports betting and win at DFS, like, I got bad news for you. That's you're almost certainly not.
It's tough out there, man.
DFS is also like cash games and GPP are two different strategies. So like, if you're more into game theory, then you're going to want to be a GPP guy. And if you're more into grinding small edges, like different distributions on like carries, or like, minimizing risk in certain spots, and just like a whole bunch of boring ass cash game stuff that I don't
100%.
really care too much about. Like, then maybe that's more your style.
It's a completely different
Uh,
game. Like it's a completely different idea that you're working with. So
right. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I would do the AP strategy until you got like a decent bankroll, then work your way into GPPs or cash games heavy. Just get your roll up. Know that you can fall back on something with edges. Always keep in mind that the game is constantly changing. If you won in 2017, doesn't mean you're winning now. If you win now, doesn't mean you're going to be winning in 2023. If you've banked a couple tournaments, it doesn't mean you're good. Bankroll management is, for poker players out there, is similar to like PLO on steroids. Like you could lose a ton more in GPP DFS than you could in poker. So like whatever bankroll number you have in your head, double it. And I don't know. Hopefully some of those tips help. I'm honestly not even sure.
I mean, I think it's all very useful, at least interesting to think about for people out there who are listening to this. And I have one final question because we did talk about this earlier, and I'll let you get out of here. Because Colin Drew in the last episode mentioned outsourcing and automating is a key part of the process. And you said that you've hired coders, worked with people in the past. I'm sure you still probably have people that you work with. How's that whole experience been outsourcing work for you?
It's pretty brutal. It's hard to find good help. I know that sounds crazy, cliche, I should say rather. But yeah, it's tough to find good coders. And there's always this cat and mouse game where you're like, I have to figure out if this guy's gonna sell my stuff or give it away or want to do it himself, right? So like I prefer Pakistani coders because they have no clue what the hell's going on. And they're really inexpensive. But then you lose a lot of things like time zones. So like they're asleep when you're awake.
God forbid something breaks before
Language
lock.
barriers. Yeah, language barriers. And the fact is, yeah, sure, there's zero risk that they're gonna like give away your ideas or sell them, but there's also they don't know the first thing about baseball or football or soccer, so it's like you have to like explain some real simple things to them. But that's getting into the weeds a little bit. Like if to automate your process so you could play a lot of different things and slates and stuff like that. Like that stuff, you should be able to find someone for. And there, I would probably go like American or Canadian coder. They're more expensive and entitled, as they should be, honestly. But like, at least it'll be just easier to get it done and get it done properly. Again, this feels more like a 1% people would be interested in this, like guys who are winning and
Right.
have a whole process. Like if you're like a noob, like I can't imagine you're gonna be shelling out, $500 to build out some codes and stuff for your $20 of entry each week that you do. I always hesitate on advice and stuff like that on the show, is because it's like who is this helping?
It's true.
It's only helping guys who can take money from me.
It's a good point.
I mean,
I mean, like the videos you do on YouTube, right? Like the first videos you started doing on YouTube.
uh-huh.
Like those videos, they're great for the average player, but you're not concerned about Ultimo taking those tips and beating you, right? Like the people that you're competing against nightly really aren't going to use those tips, and maybe these tips I don't know either. But like people ask, why do you do content if you're why you're just giving that out? Well, it's like most of the people that I'm competing against aren't going to use this or even care to use this.
Honestly, I don't think so. Like, I think kind of the opposite there. Like, when I first released those, that was a while ago, there was still a debate. I don't know if you even remember this. There was still a debate in like 2018, 2019 on whether ownership mattered amongst like a lot of like pretty good players. And still some players don't even use ownership, honestly, like that. Even in interviews we done, Whistles Go Woo said it. He does now, he says, but he didn't at the time. Petty Theft doesn't, or he doesn't like a ton. But like, when I released some of those earlier videos, I definitely thought some guys would benefit that wouldn't want to benefit. But I also knew like I had this new goal of trying to get in the community a little bit, and so I needed to provide value in some way, or else like why would anyone care
You got to balance it.
about me? Yeah, so like I felt like, okay, well this is some good information. It's not like my whole model, you know what I mean? So like. So yeah, I do think it probably hurt in the long run. I think any good advice hurts you in the long run. You should, like, if that's all you care about, you shouldn't ever give anyone advice.
Right, which is probably why we don't see some of the top 10 ever on any shows or on Twitter at all, because they're so petrified, or and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, right? Of like giving away any ounce of edge that they have or they think they have or their process or whatever, or where you have some that balance that with being public facing.
Yeah, the sports bettors are the worst, man. They give out they don't give out anything. Like it's a lot different. Poker and DFS are a lot different. Poker, especially back in like 2006, 7, 8, was like no one knew what they were doing. Like they were all guessing. So like you could really talk for hours about poker theory, and like a lot of people aren't going to get helped. Like so it doesn't really matter. But like in DFS, like most people, they're using models, they're using simulations. Like not most people, but you know what I'm talking about. The people we're talking about here.
Right.
Like I mean, I imagine like Mark Levin has just like this whole process completely laid out. And so it's like, what is he getting? Here's my process. Like, okay, now I got to retire because I just gave you guys the one thing I did. Where like on a poker, you could be like, well, the theory, I think this should be the game theory optimal decision here. And like people are like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like,
Right, yeah.
and then some people are like, no, that's wrong. You know what I mean? Where in DFS, it's like, no, here's the code, take it. You know what I
True.
mean? Or here's what you should write. Like, so like, it's a lot more dangerous to talk in DFS than it is in poker. Or back then, anyways.
Yeah. Wow, that's really interesting to think about. That's a great note to get us out of, because I think that'll leave a lot of people to continue thinking about that concept after they listen to this. So, Brian, any final thoughts? Anything we talked about? Anything you want to say we haven't mentioned yet?
Well, yeah, I'll give some shout outs here. I'm on Twitter, Brian Hooper __. I have a podcast with Peter Overzet Wednesdays, 8 Eastern, 7 Central on my YouTube and his YouTube. And we release the audio on whatever iTunes, anywhere you find pods. If people download that, appreciate it. What else do I have? Oh, website, bric75.com. I give away prop bet picks and ownership when I do it. I don't do it every day, but it's free. I also have like a little crypto idea on there if people want to read it.
Okay.
And I've recently become the #1 DFS player on Gitter, the social media app. I have 3 followers. I had 4, lost 1, down to 3. But #1, I'm finally #1.
You can just retire now on top.
Yeah, I know. It's quite the account. Speaking of accomplishments, that is definitely one.
Yeah, this entire interview led to that point. So,
Yeah.
All right, Brian, man, I appreciate you. I know you're busy, and I really appreciate your time and talking through all of this. And again, guys who are listening, go follow Brian. And until next time, appreciate you listening, and good luck as always.